They said Sanjana Rao had everything: beauty, brains, and a future mapped in diamonds and silk. But in a Toronto penthouse, sweet, glittering with wedding gifts and shattered dreams, police found her lifeless body and the man she just married sitting in blood-soaked silence. Don't miss stories like these. Hit subscribe, join the channel, and stay with us. What you're about to hear changes everything you think you know about happily ever after. But let's go back to where it all began. Night blurred the Toronto skyline into molten gold, the city humming beneath the spire-lit Fairly Grand. Room 3843 wore its romance like a costume. Rose petals strewn across luxury sheets, polished champagne flutes catching the city's heartbeats, the faintest trace of jasmine lingering in the air. 4:30 guests still lingering in the grand ballroom downstairs. This was a victory. Old money and new status united, a spectacle of tradition and ambition. Upstairs, only hotel security could sense the shift, the sudden hush after the festival. Sanjana slipped off her veil, careful, methodical. The wedding gown, red and gold, centuries woven into every stitch, felt like armor. Every intricate beadwork detail caught the soft overhead light, shimmering faintly like stardust. Her hands trembled as she adjusted the folds, bracing herself for a confrontation she'd rehearsed, but never like this. Her husband, Arjun Mehra, stood by the panoramic window, framed against a skyline that stretched endlessly. To the families, tonight was the fulfillment of every dream. But here, the air was electric with something far darker. All day, tradition had cloaked chaos. The Rao family, pillar of Toronto's Indian community, had waited years for the perfect match. Now, proud words and gold coins had tied them permanently to Arjun's family, patrons of power and legacy. Downstairs, the ballroom echoed with laughter and music, but up here, a storm was brewing. Arjun scrolled through messages and shadows, his jaw rigid. Sanjana's aunt had toasted his sacrifice and destiny, guests weeping into their linen napkins, the couple radiant under the camera's glare. Only Sanjana's glance, too quick, too careful, hinted at anything less than joy. Well past midnight, the storm quietly erupted. Sanjana, wrapped in silk, retreated to the bathroom, her phone a lifeline to another world. Whispered messages in English and Hindi shot through screens, names her family had never heard, secrets they'd never suspect. Meanwhile, Arjun sat rigid, centuries of expectation and pride tightening around his shoulders. Downstairs, whiskey and toasts. Upstairs, the sound of hearts splintering. Hotel security footage would later reveal Sanjana hesitating at the suite door, bare feet pressed against marble, listening. She nearly called the front desk for an extra blanket, anything to delay the inevitable. Instead, she returned, deleting a message from Noah. One more lie wiped away, for now. In the bedroom, Arjun waited, holding her passport and a sleek black phone she'd thought no one would find. His voice cut the air. Who's Noah? Not a question, an accusation. Sanjana forced a practice smile, the one she used for family, for cameras. A work friend. But Arjun read aloud. Messages, bank transfers, photos from clubs, Toronto night skies with a man his family never knew. Silence hung, heavy, electric. Your whole life's a lie, isn't it? Arjun's voice barely a whisper, trembling with 100 emotions. Shame, disbelief, heartbreak. Sanjana tried to explain. Noah Faulkner, a banker, a friend, just work, but the evidence glowed from the phone like a searchlight. Her silence became her confession. The city outside seemed to hold its breath. Anger crescendoed. A crystal vase launched across the room, glass shattering against the marble like their trust. Tears streamed down Sanjana's face, bronze rivulets against blooming bruises. Arjun's hand shook, clenching at memories, at the stories he'd been told. Stories now unraveling in a tangle of lies and heartbreak. Arguments spiraled, accusations, desperate apologies, the ugly duet of secrets laid bare. Down the hall, a housekeeper paused, drawn by muffled shouts, but moved on when the silence returned. In those four walls, wealth, ambition, love, tradition, everything collided and combusted, their private war drowning in denial and regret. Sanjana begged for time, for forgiveness, but Arjun's shock left him speechless. For hours, tension pulsed, grief and rage circling the room, the world outside oblivious as their marriage collapsed in real time. In the suffocating quiet of 4 a.m., only tragedy remained. Toronto awoke to headlines that would haunt the city. An Indian bride murdered in a luxury suite, her double life exposed, a fairy tale revealed as a masquerade. But the roots of this night's darkness stretched back years, knotted with hope, deceit, and the desperate longing to keep two incompatible worlds together. Arjun's pacing was restless, a subtle storm across the cloud-gray carpets of room 3843 as Sanjana quietly placed her jewelry onto the dressing table. Piece by piece, the gold still warm from her wrists. The city lights pressed through the glass, dazzling and indifferent, painting the shadows along the walls with strokes of false comfort. She glanced at her husband in the reflection, searching for the version of Arjun she'd promised herself she could grow to love. A decent man, rooted in heritage, but also kind, maybe even forgiving. All she saw on his shoulders tonight was tension, an iron coil winding tighter with every unread notification on his lit phone screen. Downstairs, the final wedding guests stumbled into elevators, silk saris and sharp tuxedos rumpled, the revelry of old family friends giving way to whispers about the glamorous new couple's future. Unbeknownst to them, upstairs, the marriage was already rotting at its root. In the moments between the clatter of carts in the hallway and the hush of the suite, the silences pressed in, not the comfortable quiet of lovers, but something sharp-edged, desperate. Arjun inhaled, his voice flat and hoarse. "What else have you lied about, Sanjana?" She turned slowly, weighing the cost of truth against the devastation of confession. Her secrets flashed behind her eyes. Not just Noah, the enigmatic banker who texted her a private, "I miss you," during the wedding reception. There were others. Hidden debts, unexplained work trips, nights spent in rooftop bars instead of the cozy video call she told her mother about. All spun together by the very desperation to outrun the fate her family scripted for her since childhood. But Sanjana shrugged, feigning confusion. "I don't know what you mean." In her voice, a well-practiced innocence, her final line of defense. A hush lingered as Arjun, anger and heartache vying for control, tossed the second phone down. The screen cracked. A flurry of private messages bloomed out, evidence of a parallel existence that mocked the wedding's glamour. He scrolled, showing her picture after picture. She and Noah in Yorkville cafes, blurry snapshots after midnight at private parties, even a selfie in a suite much like this one, but with laughter, not dread, on her face. "You're not who I thought you were," Arjun said, voice numb. "You're not who anyone thinks you are." Sanjana's composure faltered. There was nothing rehearsed in the tears that came, silent at first, until they spilled into half-formed words. "You don't understand. I tried, Arjun. I tried so hard," she pleaded, finally, her guard in splinters. But whether it was for forgiveness or survival, even she couldn't say. Outside, trucks rumbled on Front Street, indifferent and constant. Inside, the air thickened, heavy with every word left unspoken in years of double lives. Arjun's voice was low, but each syllable struck hard. "I thought I was marrying a partner. Instead, I get a stranger. And everyone thinks this," he gestured to the wedding finery littering the room, "is real." She backed toward the window, jaw trembling, clutching her arms as if to keep her secrets from tumbling into the open. "My parents, they gave up everything for me to have this life." Her words trailed away. The cost of her choices had become as suffocating as the city's humid midnight air. "You used everyone, Sanjana. You used me." The accusation spiraled, gradually pulling at every fiber of their joint narrative. Childhood stories retold, academic records embellished, a job at a top firm secured with borrowed recommendations. Arjun pressed, relentless, about missing finances and mysteriously canceled flights. Every wound reopened, every kindness soured in the aftermath. Sanjana tried to reorganize her explanations into something persuasive, but exhaustion gave her away. They argued deep into the night, voices rising, falling, then rising again. She tried, at one point, to reach past Arjun and grab her shattered phone. He blocked her, grabbed her wrist, briefly but not yet violently. She pulled away, collapsing onto the chaise, mascara streaking. "Just let me call my mother. Please." Her plea hung unanswered between them. Arjun standing stiff, arms crossed, his shadow doubled in the flickering lights from the city far below. It was well past 3 when they both lapsed into silence. Sanjana curled up, knees to her chest, bridal garments wilted and soaked with tears. Arjun remained by the dresser, staring at nothing. The dawn would soon lay bare all that had transpired. Broken phones, shattered glass, and the ruins of 2 families' dreams scattered over polished marble. Downstairs, the night manager paused outside their suite, frowning at scuff marks and faint echoes of something thrown. No complaint had been called in. He moved on, unable or unwilling to see that ruin was lurking just behind that thick hotel door. In the dim glow, Sanjana drifted toward an uneasy sleep, the world of 2 parallel lives growing distant, then blurring together. In her dreams, she was still dancing at the wedding, Noah's hand on her waist, laughter all around, a Toronto skyline spread beneath them. When she woke, there was only aching silence, and the subtle, trembling knowledge that nothing could ever again be concealed. Night slowly bled toward morning, the city's oblivious march carrying on below. Upstairs, all masks had been stripped away. In a suite now haunted by regret and growing rage, something irreversible had begun. The last traces of night clung to the corners of the Fairly Grand's 38th floor as Sanjana rose unsteadily from a chaise. Her eyes were swollen, the sharp decorative pins still tangled in her hair, and the room smelled faintly of orchids and expensive perfume, clashing scents barely masking the wretched undercurrent of fear. Arjun hadn't slept. He sat by the dresser, dressed now only in an undershirt, his wedding jacket discarded, his phone flickering through unsent drafts and banking apps. Each ding and thrum a dull hammer on Sanjana's nerves. The silence wasn't mutual truce, but armistice, a cold, logic-less ceasefire between 2 ruined actors. Light crept in through the window, painting Arjun's face in shadow and silver, revealing a man unmoored. For hours, he'd replayed every moment of the past year, every smile that didn't reach Sanjana's eyes, every cash withdrawal, every carefully staged FaceTime with her parents. He almost spoke, then stopped, as if some confession might yet emerge unbidden. Instead, he scrolled deeper in her hidden phone, voice rough with humiliation. "How much did he give you?" The question was as much for himself as for her. Sanjana's stomach twisted. It wasn't like that. The lie fell apart as soon as it left her lips, just another in a string of denials she couldn't stop herself from repeating. Shame burned in her throat, hotter than anger or fear. "You think I planned all of this? Do you think I wanted any of this to happen? My parents, my family, they would never forgive me, not for this, not for the debt, but the rest." The words collapsed under the weight of the truth. If only the world had left them to their script. The family photos, the ceremonial dances, the speeches about new beginnings. Instead, it had insisted on reality, and it bared its teeth. Arjun braced himself on the edge of the vanity, knuckles white. "Every single thing you said to me, since the beginning, was it all a game to you?" His voice broke at the edges, bitterness and shame fighting for dominance. Down below, the city rustled awake, a swirl of buses, bakery lights, early morning joggers. None could know of the storm above, a marital battlefield littered with secrets. Memories flickered through Sanjana's mind. Fluorescent lights in Noah Faulkner's condo, secret brunches paid for in borrowed cash, luxury handbags slipped onto the credit card she told her mother was only for emergencies. For years, she'd lived on the knife edge between survival and scandal, her confidence crumbling with every new debt owed. Arjun tallied each sum aloud, scrolling through evidence. 1,000 here, 500 there, always Noah's name at the edges. "Does your family have any idea who they married me to?" The question was rhetorical. Truth was everywhere now, impossible to sweep aside. "Do you?" Sanjana's retort was desperate, voice unraveling. Do you know what it's like to pretend you're perfect for people? To be everyone's hope, everyone's sacrifice? He glared. Don't turn this around on me. I'm not the one with a double, no, triple life. She flinched. You never saw me, Arjun. Just the facade you wanted. I was never going to fit. The slap of his palm on the dresser cut her off, would echoing in the suite like a gunshot. For a moment, both stood rigid, breathless. Then the anger faded, leaving only devastation, an afterimage of all they'd lost. Time warped as morning bled into day. Arjun, depleted, began to gather his things. We're going to the police, he said, his eyes ringed with crimson. I'll tell them everything. The debts, the fake jobs. Noah. I refuse to play the fool. Panic seized Sanjana then, propelling her forward. If you do that, it'll destroy my family. Please, Arjun, we can fix this. My father, he just needs time. I'll pay everything. No, his refusal was cold, final. You try to fix things by lying, Sanjana. That's done. Her pleas grew frantic. Her hands latched onto his sleeves, mascara smearing across the cuff. She could sense that the only thing holding back catastrophe was exhaustion. Hers, theirs together. Then, desperate, she tried to bargain. I'll leave Toronto. I'll go back to Mumbai. You can tell them whatever you want. Just give me time to explain, to disappear, something, anything. The scene arrived at a precipice. Arjun's voice returned low and deadly. You think you get to run? After this? His grip tightened reflexively on her wrist, hard enough for her to gasp. She yanked herself away, stumbling backward, eyes darting for an open path to the door. The suite felt suddenly too small, the city too vast. You'll ruin us both, she whispered. A fury boiled up in Arjun, hot and irrational, a force of shame, grief, and cultural expectation. Centuries of sacrifice now mocked by modern scandal. What have you done? His shout shattered the fragile restraint that had held since midnight. She lunged toward the second phone on the floor, desperate for help. Maybe security, maybe her father. Arjun reached her in 2 strides. He tore the phone from her grasp, flinging it into the wall. It shattered, plastic and glass raining onto the carpet. Sanjana cried out, not from pain but from the hopelessness of it. The struggle was physical now, anger manifesting in grappling hands, legs tangled in a violent dance neither had wanted nor intended. Sanjana clawed at her arm, where his fingers bit. A lamp clattered to the ground. Let me go, Arjun, she howled. Let me go or I'll scream. He released her with force, sending her spun into the chaise, gasping for breath. You already have, he hissed through clenched teeth. The suite fell deadly quiet but for their ragged breathing and the distant chime of an elevator arriving. A sudden banging at the door. A housekeeper, timid, asking if everything was all right. Arjun forced his voice steady enough to respond. Just leave us alone. The footsteps departed quickly. Minutes dragged. The morning sun crept higher, exposing every ugly secret in the light. Between them, the ground was littered, a shredded bridal sash, a bouquet crushed and browning, phones in pieces, 2 people sitting separate in a ruined wedding suite, breath shallow with rage and regret. They stared at each other, both knowing that nothing, not forgiveness, not family, not time, could truly fix what was fractured. Neither noticed the first text coming in from friends and parents, asking why the newlyweds weren't answering, if everything was all right, when the couple would join brunch downstairs or appear in more photos. The world outside assumed joy. Inside, there was only aftermath, the churn of betrayal still spinning its terrible course. The line between accusation and violence, between confession and consequence, had already begun to blur. And in the next moments, every ugly secret and impossible emotion would come spilling out, in ways neither of them could ever control again. The air in room 3843 was heavy and still, the morning sun slicing through sheer curtains and illuminating the aftermath. Shredded wedding petals, bloodied mascara streaks on velvet, the telltale glint of smashed glass. Sanjana stood at the far end of the room, arms wrapped around herself, facing the window as if the Toronto skyline could provide escape. Arjun hunched over a battered hotel armchair, knuckles raw, chest heaving a broken rhythm. Words had run out. What was left could only simmer and combust. His phone buzzed again. Unread messages from his mother, father, cousins, all oblivious to the war waging above them. Downstairs, the Rao and Mara families milled around the breakfast spread, pretending, for a little longer, that nothing had shattered their celebration. Elders whispered about how tired the couple must be, how lovely they looked the night before. Some guests exchanged knowing glances, part envy, part skepticism, about how quickly this union had happened. But no suspicion even brushed against the true carnage. Upstairs, silence stretched and trembled. Sanjana had given up on defending herself. Shame burned in her throat, and her only hope was that Arjun would run out of anger before things tipped again. She half-heartedly picked jewelry off the floor, gathering the tokens of a life she was no longer sure belonged to her. Her hands shook as she tried to fix her hair, still matted from tears and sweat. Arjun's reflection in the window glass, distant, almost faded, looked older by years, as if some irreparable thing inside him had snapped. He finally spoke, voice sandpaper raw. "Do you feel anything?" The question sounded naive, almost childlike, but it landed like a blow. "I gave you everything. I put my name, my family's name, on the line for you. I loved you. Or at least I tried to." His next words cracked. "Was any of it worth it?" Sanjana met his gaze, and for an instant, her composure dissolved. She whispered, "I never meant for any of this to happen." A useless answer, echoed by the hum of city traffic below them and the soft, persistent ping of another incoming text. "Noah, again. Please answer me. Where are you? I tried to be what you wanted." "What everyone wanted," she said quieter. A single tear traced the last thread of her resolve. Images flashed through her mind. Nights in Noah's high-rise. Messages exchanged behind locked bathroom doors. Fabricating receipts for Arjun's father. Promising herself she'd make it right. Lies had started small, necessary, or so they'd seemed. But now she could barely remember where they began and where she ended. Arjun stood abruptly. "You want out? Is that it?" He pointed to the broken phone on the floor. "Call him then. Call your banker." The snarl in his voice was all exhaustion now, not cruelty. "You know what? I'll call my mother. She'll know what to do with a fraud." His finger hovered over his phone, as if daring her to stop him. She lurched forward, frantic. "Please, please don't. My parents. Arjun, please." Her voice dissolved into urgent gasps. The next seconds were chaos. Arjun yanked open the closet, flinging out her suitcases, clothing, even a wooden jewelry box that splintered against the wall. Sanjana tried to grab his arm, and he swung in reflex. Not a punch, but a half-shove, wrenched by blind panic and months of repressed humiliation. He shouted, accusing her of ruining his life, of orchestrating a spectacle. She screamed back, voice hoarse, fingernails clawing at his chest. The fight left bruises that would outlast any sorrow but not, it appeared, provide any relief. At some point, the violence receded, not erased, but transforming into something colder. Arjun retreated to the bed, breathing in hard, eyes glassy. Sanjana sagged to the floor, clutching her ruined phone, knees tucked in her wedding dress. They were both shaking now. The room was a battlefield littered with memories, the wreckage of a couple who, mere hours ago, had been blessed before 100 witnesses. Then, an unexpected knock. Deep, insistent. Both froze. The digital lock's light blinked red. Arjun checked the peephole, saw a uniform. Hotel security, flanked by a nervous front desk manager. "Mr. Mehra," came the voice, polite but wary. "Your family is concerned. Can we assist in any way?" Arjun hesitated. "No, please. We're fine." The manager paused. "If you need anything at all, just let us know. We'll send up more towels." Sanjana listened to the exchange, her world shrinking to the sound of her heart pounding in her ears. For a moment, she thought about running. Out the door, down the hall, away from all of it. But every exit led back to the same truth. She had nowhere left to go. An hour passed. 2. Arjun numbly returned to reading messages, blocking each one from her phone, as if by deletion he could erase her from his life. Downstairs, Sanjana's parents were calling, texting, wonder growing by degrees into dread. Anxiety radiated through the walls. feeding on the silence above. Finally, as the sun burned hottest through the hotel's wide glass, casting sharp-edged shadows over the ruins of the night, Sanjana stood. With a breath, she faced Arjun. "We can't go back," she said, simply. "No matter what we say, who we hurt, there's no undoing this." He didn't reply, merely gazed at the ring on his finger before yanking it off and tossing it across the room, where it skittered under the dressing table and was lost from sight. They stayed there, locked in a kind of suspended hell, and neither realized how close their despair was to a final, irreversible breaking point. One final, shattering collision waiting just on the other side of the day's thin, vulnerable light. As the sun began its slow descent behind Toronto's skyline, the luxury of room 3843 became an oppressive cage. The gold and crimson leftover from the wedding were now dull. Petals wilted, the stench of stress and sweat overpowering even the fragrance of imported orchids. Sanjana perched at the room's edge, shoulders hunched, hands trembling as she clung to what little remained of her composure. The city outside pressed on with indifferent energy, taxis blaring, streetcar bells echoing, all oblivious to the devastation occurring above them. Arjun moved like someone 10 years older, the life leached from his eyes. Every muscle in his body was wound tight by a sleepless night of accusation, physical struggle, and the gutting unraveling of every illusion he'd cherished. A future, a partnership, family pride. His voice, when it finally came, was a hollow echo. "Was there ever a moment when it was real for you?" Sanjana took too long to answer. Her mouth worked soundlessly, the words she'd always used. Excuses, manipulation, desperate self-justification, now cracked apart under the bare bulb of reality. "I lied to everyone," she admitted, whispering, "but I was just trying to survive. I was trying to be what I was supposed to be." The light outside faded from gold to bruised blue, and the suite's detritus told the story. Broken wedding jewelry, streaked mascara on a pillow, a lamp knocked askew. Every object was evidence of violence, of grief, of the shattering of two families' dreams. Hours dragged. Downstairs, relatives insisted to hotel staff that the couple needed rest. Phones buzzed unanswered. Eventually, concern mounted to dread, and 3 sharp knocks sounded at the suite's door. Sanjana froze. Arjun glanced at her, recognition and resignation flickering across his face. Hotel security entered first. Behind them, 2 uniformed Toronto officers quickly assessed the chaos. There was no need for melodrama. What they saw told enough. The couple's injuries, defensive wounds and bruising, the broken glass, the visible distress, all pointed to a night that had spiraled out of control. Questions began. What led to this? Were there weapons involved? There was shouting. One guard said quietly, "A crash." A few guests even reported hearing glass break. "But it's a wedding, sir." They thought it was just celebration. But the evidence was overwhelming. The smashed phone full of conversations with Noah Faulkner, the hidden debts now scattered across the bed, receipts for nightclub reservations, and high-priced bags. Arjun's family messages stacked 20 deep, all asking for reassurances that would never again mean anything. Sanjana sat numbly as police cordoned off the room and escorted Arjun aside. She numbly explained what she could. The relationship with Noah, money borrowed, messages erased and calls faked, the constant high-wire act of pleasing parents, maintaining appearances, buying time, until there wasn't any left to buy. Downstairs, news traveled quickly. Parul and Dev Rao sobbed silently by the lobby's floral display. The Mehrotra's recoiled in public horror, private devastation playing out behind steely silence. Rumor and speculation exploded, the tragedy becoming a spectacle before the families even absorbed what had happened. Arjun was formally charged. The words "murder investigation" became an inescapable refrain, echoing as fingerprints were taken, statements gathered, family histories dissected under ruthless fluorescent lights. As handcuffs snapped over his wrists, Arjun looked back at Sanjana only once, eyes hollow as if the real violence had happened long before blood was spilled. In the weeks that followed, investigators peeled back the delicate layers of appearance, revealing an unremarkable sequence. Cultural pressure, the suffocating weight of expectation, the rot of secrecy and debt, a young woman balancing two incompatible worlds, and a young man raised to believe in honor above all else. The trial played out with the cold inevitability of a Greek tragedy. Prosecutors methodically revealed the double life: Noah's presence, Sanjana's lavish spending, years of deception. Defense built their case on the escalation, Arjun's emotional collapse, the unbearable convergence of humiliation and rage. Texts, bank statements, CCTV footage from the wedding night, and tearful testimony from both families cemented what the city already whispered. This was not just a crime of passion, but a collision between tradition and modernity that left no survivors. The sentence came swift and heavy: second-degree murder, life without parole for at least 15 years. One future erased, another shattered beyond repair. In the quiet that followed, neither family recovered. The Rao parents became withdrawn, unable even to return calls from old friends in Mumbai. The Malhotras suffered public disgrace, their import business bleeding clients. Their son's name, once synonymous with promise, was now a byword for scandal and shame. Sanjana's story became a cautionary tale, echoing far beyond the walls of the Fairly Grand. Counselors and faith leaders invoked her name as a warning. For parents, for second-generation immigrants, for anyone caught between two worlds. Memorials and vigils passed by in the foggy days before the trial, as old wedding photos circulated alongside shocking news bulletins. But in private, grief was a silent, endless winter. The city moved on, but inside those ruined families, time splintered and froze. Room 3843 was renovated, its walls given a fresh coat, the luxury suite rechristened. Still, those who had been there, the police, the staff, the nearly weds who'd smiled for photos just hours before, never quite shook the sense that happily ever after can vanish in a single, terrible night. And so a wedding became a warning, and dreams woven in gold and silk dissolved in tragedy, leaving only the lessons of secrecy, consequence, and the impossible price paid when truth is buried for too long.